12 years ago, the revered cultural commentator Britney Spears announced that if you want a hot body, if you want a Bugatti, you want a Maserati, you better work, bitch. But, bitch, do you truly have to work? About a decade later, the feted artist, entrepreneur, Kim Kardashian offered the following advice to women in business. Get your fucking ass up and work. It seems like no one wants to work these days. You have to just surround yourself with people that want to work. But why should anyone, male, female, they, them, want to work these days? What even is work? What is it for? And what does it mean to live a full life as a woman, as a human being? For decades, women were told that the solution to the problem that has no name is to escape the prison of domestic life, seek independence from men, and develop careers and an income of their own. Yet the collapse of the girl boss era is spurred in part by the excesses of late-phase capitalism, have reminded us that a career can't keep a woman or a man warm at night, and that a life predicated on individual autonomy is not only an existential dead end, but that it is not conducive to forging a just, loving, and flourishing society. From the ashes of girl bossery and 2020 era woke platitudes have emerged all sorts of reactionary ideologies and trends, among which the infamous trad wife has become quite prominent. Some of them are here tonight. Might have seen them. The pendulum, they tell us, must be swung back the other way, the other extreme. Women need to go back into the home, pop out children, make bread from sourdough starters, and post pictures of themselves doing all this on social media. Yet for most sensible women, the reactionary, larky antics of performative trad wifery are low-key cringe and hard to take seriously. Besides, where can you find a man these days to provide for you and your 6 children, maybe 7, on his income alone? Where can one even find a good man these days? One who isn't a total soy boy or a creepy manosphere-filled edgelord? Several men here did more than 30 push-ups. Can you raise your hand, cheer if you did 30 plus push-ups? We have some real men here. I wish we had more soy boys so we didn't have to give away so many free drink tickets. But at least we know not all the men are soy boys anymore. But maybe some of them are edgelords. We don't really want them. They're kind of creepy. Anyway, nevertheless, either way, it is tough for these cis-het ladies out of these streets nowadays. Here tonight, I, very much like the Virgin Mary, am truly blessed among women. These women agree. When you ask these cool, interesting, face queens, face goddesses to help us think through all this ideological discord about femininity, about work, about vocation and fulfillment, with the hope that maybe they're going to give us some tools to think a little more clearly about what's going on in the world today, to think about who we are, what we're doing with our lives. So, to my right, we have Bridget Ruffing. By night, Bridget is an artist and the writer behind It's Very Huge, Ellipses, I'm sorry. A Substack collection of personal essays, reviews, and poetry. She also contributes to Cracks and Pomo quite frequently. By day, Bridget works as a banker for a credit union in central Maine. She trekked all the way down here in the middle of Britain, right on the verge of the snowpocalypse. Very brave. And is striving to keep up with the manic pace of modern banking while maintaining her sanity. Let's hear it for Bridget. Emilia Tanu-Chornay is a wife and mother of 2 who lives and works in New York City, also 3 because you have a cat who's a very cool cat. Anyway, currently Emilia spends her days at home with her children trying to finish her comically overdue master's thesis in philosophy and education from Teachers College and supporting harmony in the logistics of 2 grassroots local Catholic nonprofits. Let's hear it for Emilia. Also has contributed to Cracks and Pomo a few days ago. And Audrey Pollnow, Shankel, is a writer living in New York City. She also has a baby right there, so you can see her. Let's clap for the baby, that's like really awesome. So Audrey writes the Journal of Embarrassing Catholic Studies, is written for First Things, for Compact. Let's hear for Compact. Oh, that's really cool. And other publications. And I also want to give a round of applause to all the people who actually came out in the midst of this cold. A bunch of people texted me saying, asking me if it's still going to be on. I don't see any snow. I don't see why you can't put on post and plug. So, round of applause for you guys, without being soy boys or girls coming out tonight. Clap for yourselves, people. Come on. It's a big deal. Okay, so this is where I want to start it off. I've been told that I sometimes fall into the mortal sin of mansplaining, but I've been trying to hashtag do better. So please do correct me if I cut you off, but also please don't be one of those hysterical females and drag on and hog the mic. We don't hear you all night long. Anyway, okay, so this is what I want to start with. I want you each to start by telling us, what were you taught to prioritize growing up? In terms of career, marriage, having children. So what were you taught? How did you receive that message? What's your attitude like at this point in your life? Give us the basics of your own story. Greatest SOs.
So I grew up raised by a trad-like mom, I guess I would say. My dad actually, he does make enough to support 6 kids and have his wife live it on. We were all homeschooled, raised Catholic, conservative, so you got a lot of the traditional, like, that's what you see around you is girls getting married young and having a lot of kids, striving to not have to work and just be supported by their husbands. So that was definitely like what I saw around me growing up. But I was raised by a very bootstrap dad with a very like old style right wing, like go to college for something practical if you're going to go to college at all. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. Get yourself a good job, support yourself, put money in savings, don't spend unless you have to. And that, that wasn't like only for the boys. That was advice given to me too. So I don't know, in a little bit, in ways, it was a little bit of a contradictory upbringing. And my mom too, she always said like, don't get married young. She's like, she got married at 26, and she's like, I wish I'd waited longer to get married and start having kids because there's so much that she didn't do, that she wished she had done because she couldn't do it after she had kids. So I don't know. I guess my experience growing up with that kind of messaging was very contradictory, I would say.
I grew up with a working mom and a working dad. We moved to the United States because my mom worked for JP Morgan. So, take that what you will. So we were driving back from Cleveland last night, and my cousin was like, "Oh, there's the GPM building with all the LEDs on top." And I was like, "Thanks, Chris." But so part of the reason why we came here was JP Morgan at the time in the 90s had this really impressive H-1 visa program. And so my mom was like, oh, ticket to American citizenship, high paying job. My cousin can come here. My children can come here. And that kind of like discernment was very related to my cultural upbringing. So like in East Asian culture, it's very common for a lot of women to work, especially, the early 90s, early 2000s immigrants that came to the United States when the doors were still very open. It's very common to have two parents and immigrant families who are working. But what I would say that was unique was there was a concept that work was for the purpose of your family. It was for the purpose to provide for your family and not necessarily self-expression. I don't really know if my mom liked being a stockbroker, but she was really good at it. And she made sure she was good at it so she could have security for our family. My dad was a small business owner and ran a laundromat. He owned like 2 rental properties. Also, all the David's here with ATMs. She would in the midst, other guy with run a cash business to stuff the ATMs with cash and keep cash flowing. And in the summers, I would basically be in the car to wash the car so that it would move the car over if you were double parked while he was in the bodega, taking out cash and switching out bills. Super formative. And then working at the laundromat, I obviously had things to do. So I was given chores. I had to restock the vending machine, and if I was really great, I could take some candy that got from Costco. We resold for a higher price in the laundromat vending machine. So it was clear that work was for the purpose of your family and for the purpose of community and being enmeshed in a community. Now that an adult, I feel like I carried that, but where I would differ is that perhaps it's not to the extent of having a standard of living that is projected and idealized. That's something my cousin and I talk a lot about is, oh, look, our families grew up working very hard. I actually want to instill in our children, but it should be to the extent of the standard of living that we're always chasing that's giving us anxiety and or it's rooted in comparison.
What you guys have like more exciting childhoods. I feel like I grew up in the I kind of like the classic like professional class context where like I think all of my aunts was going to college. I think everyone who went to like high school went to college, and there was kind of a sense that like this clear track that is like, okay, you're gonna keep going to school. You're gonna try to find a job that's fulfilling and engaging and like uses your faculties to the highest extent possible, and it's going to be really worthwhile. And you like as you're doing this organically, sort of like marriage and relationships will emerge with that. And I think overall it was, yeah, I think, so I graduated from high school in 2008, and I think it's kind of common for people of my generation, a sort of hyper-romanticism about like what we would all be able to achieve in our work. It wasn't, I think it would have actually been considered like shameful to be like, oh yeah, like my job is just a means to an end. But like, I want to live a nice life. Like, I want to take my work seriously, but I want to sort of like, that's in one sphere, and then focus on this other stuff. So that didn't always work out for everyone. Yeah.
So, and that being said, I want to just step back and look at like, why are we doing this? So obviously, okay, in the discourse we have, I don't know, it's kind of frustration with the girl boss narrative that you have to do it all independently. Yeah, you can get married, you can have kids too, but career, and now we have the trad wives going the other way. But I think one of the catalysts for this event in particular, and this wouldn't be a Prax and Como event if I didn't quote Camille Paglia, but we have to do it. So no, there is a Paglia, I think it was when she was talking to the infamous Jordan B. Peterson, where she was saying, okay, I mean, you have this narrative that women, sure, you can get married, you can have kids first, figure out your career, go to college, so that you can have your own money, have your own life. In case doesn't work out, but also so that you don't feel tied to a man completely. Her fear is that if you prioritize this too much, if you focus on it too early in life, then you prolong marriage, having kids, to the point that existentially you start to feel lost, but also biologically the clock is ticking. So, I mean, just starting with this basic kind of narrative that, yeah, I mean, has been predominant for a while. What do you make of it personally? What does, when you hear someone saying, you know, this kind of messaging is misleading or not helpful, what do you say as young women? Whoever wants. Only thing, and just make sure Mike is close to us.
It was good. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it's an extremely misogynistic program. Because of course there's an asymmetry between when women and men are kind of in a phase where they're like decisively cut off from being able to have children, maybe cut off, oh, soon maybe I'm going to be cut off. And that gives men like a level of sexual privilege and like relationships that might become marriages that is, I think, very unhealthy. And so I think it was much, given that we don't have like a sort of precipitating event for men to need to get married, like, oh, like if I don't do it by this point, if I don't have a kid by this point, I'm not going to be able to do it. The idea that we should just be like super low key and chill about this stuff makes like very little sense. Though like at an individual level, I don't think there's very much that you can do because if you look, I'm a woman, I'm 23, and I need to be married by the time I'm 24. It's like probably going to interfere with your ability to get married. And that's true at every year in that period. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so personal story. When Chris and I wanted to get married, we were, I think, turning 24, and Chris was not going to talk to my dad on his own, so I was like, I'm not going to let you do that. That's just not good for you. So we both went in together to talk to him, and he's a really, really good guy, really good guy. Like, chops it up with Brooklyn's Bodega guys, and at the same time, to tell you that your feng shui is off in the house. He's a great guy. But the first thing he said was, we like, oh, Dad, we want to get married. He was like, Amelia, do you know that men are different than women? He is not ready to settle down. Like, he's like, no, man, like, he's not ready for this. Do you understand that? Like, love is fleeting for men. And I was like, oh. So my dad's whole thing was like, why would you should wait because men are immature. He was like, oh, just go along with your career, and when you're 30, so it'll also be 30, whatever that means. And like, you'll kind of get it together by this point where she's mature enough to like take on this responsibility. I think that was a reaction to the lack of urgent formation on them, because there isn't a precipitant I don't know if you said that. Precipitant event. Maybe I made that up. So I think a lot of this narrative comes from both having like a deficit mindset of what men and women are capable of. And then the reality is, unfortunately, in the peak childbearing years of a woman, it's their early 20s and 30s when, for both men and women, even for young men who desire to become fathers, I know there's a lot of men who desire that, you're making an entry-level salary. And so your peak income usually doesn't hit statistically, like I was reading this yesterday, like if I get under 49, like the average personal income of a man in the United States based on whatever survey last year was when they were 49. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, so maybe you feel like backtrack a couple years, you're like, I'm okay with the standard of living when I'm 35. That's when I'm going to seriously try to have children. But, well, it also like leads us into thinking that, one, it takes a lot of work to find a partner. So if you put it off, you're just putting off more work. And then two, it takes a lot of work. It's not work necessarily, but unpredictability to conceive a child. And it's becoming more of a real reality where you just don't know, because again, fertility and even marriage and how children work is totally this mythical, natural thing that's out of our technocratic control, at least, well, in some sense. Nowadays, there's lots of things going on. But at its core, what it is, it's totally out of our control. So there's this like delusion that both of these two pieces take a lot of work, but that they actually don't. It's just easy to do. And then the other piece, which is just delaying the formative experiences that you need to have, like desire to have, to be right, to get married.
Yeah, I would say like the girl boss, I'd say there's a lot of kind of gaslighting on both sides, from like both sides scenario. Like, I think my reception of like the girl boss narrative is, well, there's been a lot of shame thrown at women who just want to get married and have kids. Like, it's like that's not a honorable enough, pursuit. And I think that's just a terrible way to talk to another human being. Like, if your genuine dream in life is to get married and stay home with your kids, like, you should be supportive in that. I don't think that you should be shamed because you're not climbing the corporate ladder or whatever. I don't think you should be naive about who you're marrying or how you're going to support your family. But if that's your dream, like, you should pursue that with as much seriousness as you pursue your career. But then on the other side of it, I also, like, growing up in the homeschooled conservative Catholic world, I've seen the other side where there's kind of this base assumption of like, what you're good for as a woman is getting married and having kids, to a family. I went to like a very small, very Catholic, conservative, mostly homeschool college. And it was honestly like, it's really interesting to look back on my educational experience, because I was a very good student, and like I did well in my studies, and some of my professors were like had some high hopes for me and things like that, but there weren't a lot of avenues available to me. Like, very few that they made available to me. Some were like, maybe you should go to grad school, but that was about it. Because they're just like, I think in some ways their worldview didn't make enough room for
a woman who didn't meet her husband in college and then get married and start having kids, because that's what a lot of the people who went to my college did. Yeah, the one that they just found their partner and they got married, and like that was the end of the story. So I see like the gaslight on both sides, I'd say.
Yeah, and I want to look at this question of careerism, which I think, again, is particular to the age that we're living in because of the economic demands, but also ideologically that, I mean, a lot of people place their hope in their accomplishments and proving their own worth through whatever they achieve. And I mean, Emilia, I want to ask you because you recently reviewed Leah Labresco's Sargent's book for us about dignity of dependence, looking at a different kind of approach to feminism. Because again, we're living in this culture where everything is about independence and again, my achievements, this autonomous individual. So I mean, the same things that hold true for women. Like we said, career can't keep a woman warm at night, nor can it keep a man indignant. Sure, it's meaningful to accomplish things, but that can't be your reason for existing, your job alone. So I'm curious for you, and because I know you personally, I know that you've had to navigate a lot of questions about your vocation, what place work outside the home plays in it. I'm curious for you, I mean, at what point does work become a meaningful thing for you beyond just the thing that you need to do to make money, or a thing where you just try to prove, your accomplishments? Like, well, how is work actually a meaningful part of your vocation, your calling in life?
Ooh, that's fun. I, besides being married and having children, I think work is single-handedly the most formative experience I've had in my life. I don't think that should be necessarily true, like in the other experiences, but as Stephen said, in this day and age, like there is such a separation between the public and private spheres that sometimes, like, you can, in this private sphere, as beautiful as it is of the family, like really isolate yourself. The way things are, like bedroom communities and suburbs and different things. Even in a city, you can't really choose to isolate yourself from the realities that are out of your control. For a simple example, when I used to work full time, I would commute on 4 train all the way up to the Bronx. And it became like one of my favorite parts of the day because I just remember that there were other people out there who had lives that were drastically more difficult than mine. And it was extremely helpful before coming home to be like, you gotta check yourself. Like, you can't be a mentee stage to your children. Like, you just saw this other person, like, working as hard as you, and they probably have children and a grandparent at home. And so I think it all depends on your attitude or the disposition towards receiving work as a gift. And at the same time, if work is a gift, then it's something that can be relinquished and given up freely. And so, like, recently I stopped working full time in July because it was very clear, both financially for my family in terms of childcare and just for the good of my children, that it was not the right thing. And it was a gift to be able to say, no, I'm going to not do work outside of the home because I know it was a gift to receive the opportunity in the first place. I know that's not the reality for many people, and especially in the city. Like, there's a lot of people who have to work. They have to. They necessarily don't want to. I was very blessed to be in a job where they cared about me, they cared about my family, and we were doing something that was a service to people. And I think lots of industry can be services, but unfortunately, the way things work, like if you're working for Pizza Hut, I really know if Pizza Hut is going to say, like, I think you're serving people. Versus like, oh, you're making less money, so we're going to produce pizza. So yeah, those are those 2 things. And I think, yeah, the biggest thing for women in particular is just to know that because we are inherently different, that yes, our attitude towards work and its relationship, our attitude toward work and our relationship should be different than that. That can be taken a variety of ways, and someone else could talk about that.
So now I want to ask Bridget, because you wrote I think one of our best pieces, we practice it on our Substack, about the dating market. We'll get into what prompted that piece, why I commissioned it for me, but I do want to ask you, tell us a little bit about your experience on the dating market. What are some of the So, yeah, I can summarize some of the points you made in that piece. I don't know, like, what you were trying to convey about what you're looking for when you're dating someone.
Oh boy. I would say I feel like the piece makes it look like I've had more experience in the dating market than I have. Like, I've gone to like 6-inch dates. Like, it's really, because it's kind of awful and I don't want to do it very often. But I'd say like my recent experiences with going on dates have just been a lot of like, it feels like we're just having a one directional conversation. Like, the guy is talking about what he cares about, and I am finding pieces of my experience that can kind of help me relate to that. But I mean, you hear people on the internet complain about this too. Like, women complain about they go on dates and guys don't ask them any questions, you know? And like, I get that though, because if you have a conversation with me, I'm so bad at follow-up questions. Like, my mind goes blank so quickly, and like, I feel like that's probably what it is for guys too. Like, it's hard asking questions in a conversation. But um But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of just like, okay, we'll talk about what he's interested in. Like, oh, he used to play golf. Okay, my dad and my brothers are really into golf, so I can talk golf lingo. I was on the golf team for like 1 year in high school, so I guess I know what some of the clubs do. But um, but it's just like, I don't know. You have these one directional, very surface level conversations, and I'm just like, how on earth are we ever going to get to a point where, I don't know, I can talk about the things that I'm really interested in? Because the things that I'm interested in are just kind of like, I don't know, weird and sometimes esoteric. I don't know. Like, you can't have a Hinge date and then figure out how you're going to go from there to like, oh, the Camille Pallia's book, Sexual Persona, it really means a lot to me, you know? Like, like, I don't know, like Jungian psychology is really interesting. So that kind of like fueled my article, because my article was a lot about like kind of this intellectual, I don't even want to say divide, because I don't want to say that men are as smart as women. I don't believe that. But I think that I don't. But I think that like the difference in communication styles is just like really jarring, especially if you're going on like Hinge dates with these guys that you've only ever spoken to over the phone, like texting. Um, and it's just, I don't know, and like I'm gonna be a little bit rambly, but like another part of my article is, I think that women oftentimes lose their innocence before guys do, for biological and sociological reasons. And so women are out here already like thinking about how they're being observed by men as like sexual objects, or thinking about the fact that like any sexual encounter, whether it's consensual or not, could get them pregnant, what's going to happen if they get pregnant, et cetera, et cetera. And there's less, in a lot of ways, there's less of that awareness forced onto men. And then if you're on the internet, the algorithm feeds both sides. The algorithm feeds you as a woman in your paranoia with all these videos about like these horrible experiences that women have with these horrible men. And you're like, oh my gosh, are all men like this? Oh my gosh. And then if you're a man, the algorithm can also be like the devil on your shoulder. It can feed you like all these like porn pride videos and like, this really edgy Chad content and entertain and all that. It just like, it feeds like the worst instincts on both sides. And so it's like, there's all this stimulation for the men and there's all this like deepening of the paranoia for women. And that does impact like my experience with dating. Like, I am already kind of a cautious, anxious person. And then I'm going out on these dates and I'm like, I don't know, is this even worth my time? And also, is this guy potentially dangerous? If I say the wrong thing, am I gonna piss him off and he's gonna start stalking me or harassing me? I don't know. So I guess that's kind of like the general gist of like my article and kind of the more scary side of dating today. And there's just kind of like this intellectual like miscommunication where I think women are very intelligent
and where we can be really good at like handling a conversation, and it feels like there's not a lot of communication from the men. Um, and it feels like we know all this stuff and we see all this stuff and we're paranoid about it. And like, what do we do with all this paranoia, I guess?
So, what are you looking for when you're on a date? All right, answer.
I don't know. Although when I find it, maybe I don't know. Yeah, I mean, genuinely, like being able to have like a very engaged, authentic, intelligent conversation. I mean, like I would really like to talk with the guy about, I don't know, books that aren't just how to win friends with people. I would take Jordan Peterson over like Atomic Habits. Like Atomic Habits was fine. Like I don't think about it ever. So that's what I guess that's what I'm looking for.
So, the thing that prompted me to ask you to write that piece. So, as we all probably know, like Big Fat Greek Wedding, there is a very famous line where the mother tells her daughter the secret to men. Men are the head, and women are the men, and she can turn the head any way she wants to. So I wanted you to comment on that, in part because, okay, I'm Greek, I assume this to be true. You guys can turn the heads any way you want, but okay, but what's behind it? So on the Freudian, Lacanian, whatever, on a level. The argument is that women are more intelligent than men. This whole idea that women are irrational, women are hysterical, is actually because you know so much that it drives you crazy. I mean, this is what Lacan via Zizek says. So this is the secret to being a woman is harnessing your intelligence, not letting it drive you crazy, and figuring out how to use it to work the man to make him think that he's actually the smarter one, when really you're the one calling the shots. Because you feel bad that we're so stupid. Which, I mean, personally, I think on a very base level is true. Like, you guys, you be knowing more than us because you carry humans in you. And we're very simple. We are fine down. We normally what we're doing. Yeah. But then there's this, we can transcend the basic kind of instinctive level. And I think this is what you got in your piece, Bridget, that you want a man who can recognize you not just as, the woman who's gonna bat her eyes and be like, oh, that's so interesting, when you really don't give a shit that he's talking about. But you want to be treated as a human being who, is distinct, who has differences, but like you can meet him at this level with your distinct whatever sensibilities. I don't know. What do you say to this? What do you say to this whole man is the head, woman is the neck, the woman's the smarter one, man's stupid? What's your reaction? I mean, so if you want to hear Bridget, you can make it. But I don't know. Other ladies, what do you say?
I like that as an excuse for my hysteria. It's like, oh, this is just all my intelligence, like bubbling over. But yeah, so I'll take it. Probably true, but I didn't say that.
I think it's no. So, more serious questions. So, Audrey, you wrote a piece, you published it yesterday in Compact, about pay scales, wages in men and women, which kind of overlapped a little bit with the piece that I wrote for Pollnow a few weeks ago, based on a lot of, personal reflection in my own life, but also friendships with other guys, observations of what they're experiencing. Because, again, I mean, job markets are up, economies are up, but I also have to say that I think part of the fact that it's normal for women to be in the workforce has put men in a unique position because you can do it all. What do we have to offer? We can't talk about children. You can work, we can work. So what do we do now? So that compounded with the economic crisis, the job crisis, I see a lot of guys struggling. I see a lot of guys having a hard time maturing. I see a lot of guys who are infantilized. I see guys who are really trying to get jobs, to find stable careers, but it's not easy. Oftentimes, the woman is the breadwinner in a relationship. And we can say, hey, we're forward thinking, we're progressive. It's okay if the woman makes more money and the man doesn't. We're all equal, doesn't matter. I don't think most of them believe it when they say it. I think that deep down there's an insecurity. You could say it's socially conditioned, you could say it's biological. I happen to think there's something kind of innate about it. But I see this kind of insecurity, but also this resentment that, I'm not the one able to provide. I'm less so that I'm the one to control it, that I can't protect, I can't serve the way that I feel I'm meant to. And I see guys who, again, will say on the surface that they're fine, but this resentment festers and it can come out in a variety of ways, whether it's self-destructive ways, whether it's, through anger, whatever, expressed towards the woman. But I don't know, what I said in my piece is that the same way I would never tell a woman, make a comment about a woman's weight, because I know that it hits you on a certain level. I know I get a certain way. If anybody, especially a woman, makes a comment about my capacity to achieve. So, Audrey, I want to ask you, just if you can reiterate some of the points you made in your piece, and if the other ladies want to jump in afterwards and comment on this kind of situation we're in, the job fitting in, sense of superiority. But
Yeah, so I don't feel like I can speak to sort of subjective side of how men feel about this, but I enjoyed reading your piece a lot because I could feel very interesting. But yeah, so my argument was basically that if we want to take seriously the idea that men and women can and should sort of make equally meaningful or significant contributions to society on net and also ideally kind of within relationships, that if we want to take that idea seriously, I also want to take the idea that the growing baby in your body and giving birth is a meaningful and significant and non-trivial contribution. We either need to give men something distinctive or allow men to do something distinctive, or accept certain male dominance and certain men dominating women, men doing sort of outperforming women on average in certain spheres. Or we just need to say men are second class citizens. So, and I think, different societies have done this well or badly. And I think the work, sort of breadwinning is kind of, it's an interesting and relatively recent in some ways solution to this problem, because in most societies, you need a lot of physical strength. There's contexts that need physical violence, or the capacity to engage in physical violence, like hunting or protecting your community. So when you have something really distinctive for each sex to do, it makes it relatively easy to just find a spouse. Go, I want to get married. I can do lots of things that all people can do, and I can also do these distinctive womanish things, and there are men that can do some distinctive mannish things. And I'm gonna be way better at gestating than any man, and any man is gonna be way better at fighting along than I am. We're a team. And I think a lot of women's unhappiness in not being able to find suitable husbands, and men's unhappiness also not being able to find wives is connected to this. So I sort of wanted to pose the question of after the 50s, we were our goal as a society is to run and achieve equally in all these different spheres. It got seemed incredibly short-sighted. So I don't know that it needs to be office if check, but yeah, I don't know. To you, does it seem work is does it need to be work, or could it be killing wives?
I don't have any lines that do.
Yeah, I
an option for me. I don't know. Because as I said in the piece, it's there have been times when a woman has made a comment about my job, my work, and I got irrationally pissed off the same way if I made a slight comment about a woman's appearance. That's why I was trying to draw, that kind of comparison.
Yeah.
But I think, because the nature of the society we live in, the main place that I can demonstrate my skills, my ability, whatever, is through work, through a job. I think it manifests in that way if we lived in another society where I actually could protect people from threats. The New York subway, I haven't yet. I would probably run away. But But no, yeah, like I have to say, there's a reason I look at these. It's because I see that. I don't know, honestly, I really don't. I think that there's a disconnect. Like, I think there's something particular about us men that, like, we are very sensitive about our capacity to achieve. And when you insult us, like, it makes us go a certain way. Yeah, that's my thought. But let's not jump in. Oh, yeah, good. Okay, yeah.
I don't have as much subjective thought as more like objective things I'm reflecting on that are just like the reality for all of the stuff happening that Audrey mentions in her piece. But because dual income households are now the new median household standard of living, like Chris and I were talking about this early yesterday when we were looking at some graphs to keep it was a married couple. Let's look at graphs together. But if you are a male and you are a single and you are the single earner in your household, you are 50% less likely to be able to provide for your family for this median standard of living in 2025 than you were 50 years ago. And so for a lot of men, I think, and this is something Chris and I talked a lot about when he was in residency at medical school, like Chris was in med school for like 3-4 years, he was not making money. He did not have a job. I had a job. I was teaching. We had Ellie. We had a daughter. But we often talked about how, oh, wow, like even on this residency salary, which people are like, oh, yeah, paid back later. Yeah, sure it does. But that whole process was always, I think, very interestingly existential for both of us, because the reality was, well, if you had wanted to stay home with the children, or God forbid, like the pregnancy recovery wasn't as great, or you had a health complication in recovery, or you had problems breastfeeding, or whatever it is that is totally like I referenced this for women and men, but it's just a little more unseen than men. Anything to do with children or pregnancy is like a really mysterious, mythical, out of control thing. If I wanted to stay home, like our standard of living would have totally changed. And not to say that we would totally accept that if it was what we had to do, but I do think it was really stressful for Chris and for me to consider, like, oh, we would have had to like move out of the borough. We would have had to like move away from our friend. We would have had to like, he would have had to commute to like a residency hospital for us to live in a place where we could actually match our standard of living with living on one income. And so just like the rising costs and this reality that now there's so many women in the workforce that for the time they get married, they're always marrying up. That's another statistic. Women tend to marry up. It's like, well, then I try and I'm empathetic. I'm like, oh yeah, like, okay, you're just an accountant, woo-hoo, like, you know, like, so it can be really intimidating. Like, yeah, it seems like, especially if finance is something that in 2025 everyone is always thinking about, especially in New York City. I think it can be a bit more of the existential point, especially in trying to enter the dating world.
I think bringing up like the growing need for a dual income is an important point too. It's interesting, like in my own life, I've seen kind of like the really harsh side of kind of this masculine need to be like the provider, the breadwinner, like in a very like rigid role. I mean, it's kind of a boring answer, but like probably the healthy outcome is going to be having some sort of nuance and some sort of compromise between both like the man and the woman, and like both working on these internal struggles of like, maybe the woman needs to be able to accept help a little bit more, and maybe the man also needs to also be able to accept help more. But it just makes me think of, so I work at a credit union, and there's this one guy who owns a business, it's a construction business, and he's a nice guy, but his business is not doing very well. He's like always struggling to make it to me, and you know, it's always hit or miss what his mood's going to be like, depending on like what kind of checks are coming in and like when they're late and that kind of thing. And he has a very traditional Christian household. Like he has, I think they just had another baby a few months ago. So I think they have like 4 or 5 kids now. His wife stays home and he tries to support them. And all these construction jobs are like falling through. He's having issues like getting the checks and stuff. He had like a crash out because he thought that Home Depot like double charged him for this piece of equipment that he bought for his business. And like he ended up having like an hour plus long meeting with my manager. And like she's telling me about it. She's like, yeah, he told her that like he's been thinking about just like driving off the bridge every day because he can't provide for his family. He feels like he's failed as a father and as a husband. And like I don't really, it's not like I have a concrete answer for what to do with that story, but it's something that stayed, I think about it all the time. And it's like really heartbreaking that this guy feels this pressure to only be the one providing for his family and not really accepting any help from anybody else, to the point where he's like contemplating just like ending it all. And I don't know what the situation is like with his wife, but I don't know if it would make sense for his wife to contribute something to their income. I still they have a baby, but it's tough. But yeah, I think like the need for a lot of families to have like a dual income is just like a whole other element that needs to be considered in the conversation.
It's interesting hearing all the different points that you guys are bringing up, because I think on one hand, we see that given the circumstances of the society, the economy we live in today, like we can't afford to be total purists or total idealists. We have to look at reality. We have to look at the circumstances we're in. But if we never look at these more, again, these ideals, these these impulses that are very much a part of who we are, grained into who we are, then I don't know, like we can't rule those elements out of the equation. So what does it mean to kind of balance these ideals, these longings that we have as men and women with the circumstances we're in? Easier said than done, but I think this is the main creating, trying to look at all of these aspects altogether. But just to kind of bring everything full circle. So one of the other things that inspired this event was a very weird piece that I wrote for Compact about bisexual trad wives. Some of whom might be rich now, actually. So basically, I randomly kept encountering trad wives, not necessarily ones who have influencer pages, but women who are staying home with the kids, who don't have like a big career, and who are bisexual, who had a little bit of a shitty past when they got married, maybe still now, who knows. But what was interesting about these women is that, yeah, like they're living a kind of traditional lifestyle. They're not pursuing this career, this independent life, but they're also very free about the fact that, like, hey, I'm bi, I like girls, I played around a little bit, fluid, which is not a very trad, in a certain way it is, but ultimately isn't. So it was interesting in me that these women kind of transcended the ideological paradigm that we're kind of told, the narrative that we're told. And through the conversations with them, what also became interesting was this idea that the trad lark, whether it's the trad wife, trad Catholic, whatever, is not very traditional. It's ultimately very modern, very postmodern, because tradition is not something that you invent. Tradition is something that's handed to you that transforms over time, but it's not something self-referential. It's not something performative. I mean, that's the very postmodern element of it. And when you look historically, you look at real tradition, the family model, I mean, first of all, we have to look at this bifurcation between the public and the private. Like it used to be much more porous. A lot of families ran their work out of their home. They had home family businesses, which maybe was run by the man, but the woman was involved, kids were involved, aunts and uncles, grandparents. Also, that the traditional household model was multi-generational. This is something I talked about with Emilia a lot. But I mean, the nuclear family is a very modern invention. So just to kind of close things off on this whole trad phenomenon, I don't know, what do you make when you see these trad life influencers? You're going to say like, yeah, we gotta go back to the four-length skirts and the sourdough and all these things. What do you have to say? Do better. I mean, we don't.
I mean, my take on the trad wife influencers is they're like the best girl bosses of all. Because they're like Nora Smith knows what she's doing. Like that girl, she's a career woman. Like, it strikes me as very LARPy. Yeah, I don't know, I guess the jaded side of me has seen a lot of like the posturing with the long skirts and like and like the uh the rad trad grad at it's like that's an old joke that I have from an old coworker is like the grad trad grad dad who's at Latin Mass with his 9 children and his wife who looks exhausted and he's getting his, you know, PhD in epistemology, you know. It's like, I don't know. I think that could be a little bit LARPy, especially when you have like the elbow patches and the pipe and everything. I've seen too much of that. But like the influencers, I think they're just like honestly they're career women. Like this is Midwest. She knows what she's doing. RSNet. She knows what she's doing. That's my take. Yeah, I thought about this way too much, but yeah, it was like now I have to think about exactly what I was going to say. There's some dipping. Yeah, the first thing is, as Stephen likes to say, I can count psyops.
Great tonight.
No. I just think like cause when they're on it and you see them, you're on social media, which we all know is a you know, neoliberal capitalist psyop, which is just you see on social media, it shows you things that are your worst instincts. Like it knows that you're anxious, that you're not a good enough mom. So here we go, all these moms to see it, good moms. Yeah, I think it's just another way to be emotionally manipulated. I would even say spiritually manipulated from trusting in the freedom that you were given in your vocation. And that's my big thing. Like, I don't really care if you work or son, that's I should say. I don't have any prep. I do care. Obviously, people like, I don't intellectually or I don't really care if you work or stay at home as a woman. You can be friends. You can be really good friends. Like, I really do care if you like believe in your freedom and if you use your freedom well and you discern well. There's a big part. If I was maybe translate purity part, you like, oh, I have principles that I've gone through and I did the work. So like stand by my principle and it requires sacrifice, the principle. And it's just very unclear to me from any of these influencers. They're not working mom influencers, which I think are even more cringe. I watch some of their content and it's like, here's me making my coffee to write my Zoom call. It's like, this is even worse than the sourdough where at least there were candles in the background. I don't want to see how you manage your life on Zoom. Like, I really don't, but I enjoy it aesthetically, but you know, the like lobster and stuff. Like, that's nice. So from an aesthetic standpoint. But I think both are still like, yeah, just ways to portray emotion, manipulate you to doubt like your own discernment, not to living in reality and to enjoy reality. That's my other big shtick. It's like, oh, I actually want to enjoy my life. So how do you know that I can't enjoy my life? Because you're not there. You're in West Virginia, which is great. Like,
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And yeah, I think the whole like influencer culture and advice giving in general always suffers from like, I don't know, this isn't like a moral issue, like, oh, it's like inherently evil to be a housewife or like it's inherently evil to have a job because those things are both fine. You need to figure out your own circumstances, like what's the best thing to do. At an aesthetic level, I think there's something kind of sublime about it because it's like so obviously fake in a certain way. And then there's this sort of rejoinder that's like, well, you know, like Laura Ingalls Wilder, like her life was not really like this, but it was because it was like a series of these failed business ventures and like they come forward and forward and forward. And then she becomes rich by writing these books and telling everyone about Little House on the Prairie in the 20s. So that's kind of like, I don't know, just something beautiful about that. I also think there's something about like we're just always going to index to whatever the very richest people are doing and think that that's what we should all be doing. And then you don't remember that if we all do it, it's not going to be awesome in the same way. So like the 50s, like it's not like women had been housewives since time immemorial. That was the first time that many American women were able to afford to stay home. Like the first half of the 20th century, like all women are like, oh wow, like this one rich lady, she has an awesome life. Like, I'd love to live like that, like in a villa. But then the 50s, like, okay, now we can all live in suburbs, which isn't quite like living in a villa because everything is far away now, you have to drive. And then in the 50s, I guess in the 50s,
like most of the women who were like doctors and stuff like that were probably like also for rich families. And it was like 5% of the doctors who were women in the 50s. And I'm like 1910. I found this shocking. It was more than I would have expected. And so like I wonder to what extent even some of the feminist push for like women in the professions was just like, that would be great too. But we're also all imagining like when we're all professionals, we'll be able to live like these women where there's still like quite a lot of other women who are working class who can like run the home for us. And then now we're back again. Because now it's like only really, really rich women who stay home with their wife. It's like if you were a good woman, you would live like the 1%. I don't know why you're not like doing that. I mean, something wrong with you. And so yeah, but we love to be moralistic. So like it's always fun to frame with the structural problem. It's like the problem is
So, I just
feel more guilty. That's my
yes.
yeah, absolutely.
So before we go, ladies, we're gonna play around of hot or not, against traditions and practice and public traditions. So I'm gonna list a couple of things. You either say hot or not. You can boo or cheer that if you disagree. First thing is sourdough starter. Hot or not? Not 2-1. It's not. Next, pantsuits.
Do it there.
No, they're not. Knitting. Knitting's hot, right? Okay, this weather we can start. A gay best friend. Every woman needs one. The RFK diet, like wasabi. Apparently it's hot now. It's being enforced by legislation. Hillary Clinton, and not as a politician, like as a sexual object. And she did. All the men know. Here's another one, not as a politician, but a sexual object. Mayor Zoran Mamdani. Yeah, he got it. Men who do combat sports.
Yeah.
Deny. Yeah, oh. Like women who do combat sports. Oh. Yeah, any women do combat sports here? No business. Men who can dance. Oh yeah, we all know that. Male strippers. Dating apps?
No.
Maybe. What does the crowd say? Dating apps? Woo! Ooh. They don't like that. What else? We have, suburbs. No, we all hate this. Richie knows video dad bods. Okay. Who likes dad bods here? Woo! Dad bod? Help me. Feminine hysteria. I think it's great. I think we need you guys to be the start. Let's have a round of applause for Money Up. All right, so thank you, ladies, for joining us, for sharing your insights. Hopefully it gives us all some food for thought. And our main agenda here in Cracks and Pomo is to bring people together, get people having conversations in person. So talk to people, meet someone you don't know. Talk about what was discussed tonight. If you're wearing green, look out for the other people wearing green. That means you're on the market. Have something with Pringles. We have a couple events coming up very soon, so mark your calendars. February 19th, we'll be right back here. We've had enough with the women. It's going to be about the men next. We'll be talking about masculinity through Pasolini's eyes. So February 19th, and then the next day, we're going to be down the block at the Catholic Worker talking about Leo XIII and Workers' Co-op, Sperry based. Let's thank KGB for hosting us, for Bonnie and Carrigan. Good time in the bar, you should buy drinks and you should tip them very generously this cold weather. What other thing? Buy merch. Kath is over there working the merch table. We have zines, we have tote bags of all kinds of things. Buy some merch. And if anybody can guess my costume, I'll give you a prize later on. But thank you all for coming out tonight.